Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the Nerf Herder Council.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking Nerf herder!
You can't use that word! Only we can use that word!
You're tuned in to the Nerf Herder Council, your source for Star Wars opinion, conversation, and debate. Featuring your hosts, JT.
Stormtrooper armor deflects everything except oarback hooves. They're like a horse version of Thomas the Tank Engine.
AJ.
Yeah, Rebels is a lot like our show, where we think we have a good idea and then it just fails in execution.
Steve.
The vacuum of space does crazy things to your beehole out there, man.
On this episode of the Nerf Herder Council, we hang out with Cris, show creator of The Real Fans of the Saga on Amazon Prime and Mock Tales from the Cantina on YouTube. We also hang out with his best buddy and sometime co-host Sean Hynes, but he's an attention hound, so we're trying to downplay him in the intro.
This is the Nerf Herder Council.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. I am your host, JT. With me are AJ and Steve.
What is?
And obviously, we're running a little bit late because about a couple minutes before we're supposed to go live, my local internet decided to have an outage. But right as I was literally kicking my router, it decided to work. So, little tech note for all you guys: just boot the hell out of your shit, and it'll come up. So, Anyways, there we go. Got that out of my system. So we are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. And don't forget to go pick up your fully customizable Nerf Herder Council swag at shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. So, guys, how are you doing? How's it going? We're running late, but how are you otherwise?
Fantastic.
I'm here.
Awesome. Well, I have been looking forward to this show. I had the idea to ask these guys to come on for quite a while now, and I am super, super pumped up that they agreed to come on. Tonight we are going to have two guys from the Amazon Prime Star Wars reality series, Real Fans of the Saga. We've got show creator and producer Cris Macht and show stealer Sean Hynes. He of the almost not getting to go to Celebration in the show. But anyways, it's a 6-episode series on Amazon Prime, and it's about four best friends who make a trip to Celebration Anaheim, which is pretty famous for us because that's where we came up with the idea for our show. So without further ado, let's bring on Mr. Cris Macht and Mr. Sean Hynes. How's it going, guys? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having us. Crew.
Awesome. So in honor of your show, which we are definitely going to talk about a little bit later, Cris, Mock Tales from the Cantina, you have a rule that people have to drink on your show. So we decided to have some beverages. So I've got the Phantom Menace IPA, as you guys called it, the green screen beer.
Yes.
Well, I like how yours still has a price tag on it, AJ.
Mm-hmm. You can tell I drink cheap. Was it $2? Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
The price is brought to you by Watermelon Mountain Dew, Major Melon.
Oh, that stuff is tasty.
So the big question there is it zero sugar or is it full blast?
They have a zero sugar version, but I gotta go full blast. I mean, look. Of course you do.
Yeah. Who buys it with zero sugar?
Fat guys like me, Steve. Fat guys like me.
No, that's how you became fat, is avoiding the zero sugar. You might as well stick to it now.
No, I became fat because of Phantom IPA. All right, so let's dig into it, Cris. Obviously, you have a number of different Star Wars projects under your belt. The Force Among Us, The Force Within Us. I actually have an autographed copy of Force Among Us over on my shelf. I bought it at a Celebration. I had you autograph it for me. So, obviously, as we said, so the Real Fans of the Saga is you and Sean and your late buddy Bo and your buddy Alfie, and this is your tale of going to Celebration Anaheim, and you guys are all from the Chicago area. Where'd you come up with the idea to put this show together?
Well, I need to clarify really quickly that it's a 12-episode show. Season 1 is 12 episodes. 6 of them are up on Amazon now, and I cannot tell you how patiently the fan base has been waiting for those next 6 episodes. Out of those 6 episodes, there's a lot of it that covers Celebration. Maybe 4 out of the 6, maybe 3 complete episodes based on that. But I don't want a misconception that this is about Celebration, because once we get out of Celebration, we don't go back. We don't go back. But there's a lot of that featured in the first season, of course, and that's where we blew most of the budget. The idea for the reality show, and I was putting together something for my mocktails from the Cantina Patreon members tonight, where I am putting together some behind-the-scenes stories on the real fans of the Saga. And the idea came from my wife's obsession with reality TV. And every time I got done watching baseball, I would go upstairs to bed, and she would have on the Real Housewives series, whatever they were. There's so many Housewives series on Bravo. And I got hooked on not the story, not the celebrities, but I got hooked on the production value of the show. And I was like, man, my wife's obsession for reality TV is being absorbed by my brain. And I love the production value. And I wanted to do something other than a documentary. We did the 2 Star Wars documentaries, then the documentary on the Walking Dead fandom. And I wanted to do something different and new. So I completely ripped off the formula, and I tried to copy the formula and the effects and everything that you see in the Bravo's Real Housewives show, and incorporate that in our own. And Sean and Alfie and Bo, we are truly friends. I was talking to Sean the other day, and he goes, you got Star Wars friends, you got Facebook friends, you got childhood friends, and you got friends. And that's exactly what me and Sean are. We are brothers. We go back way back, 29 years. And so everybody says the reality show isn't really real. Well, yeah, for the most part it is, because it's based on our friendship. And, I got to say, sometimes the camera crew isn't always around. On the budget that we have, you got to say, hey, that was a good idea. Let's do that again for the camera when we get the crew together. And then we kind of not reenact it, but say, hey, you were talking about the blue snaggletooth being rare. Let's have that conversation on camera. And a lot of that stuff really came to fruition in the reality show. But the idea started back when I was having conversations in people's kitchens during the Force Among Us days. So, but it was something that I was not able to accomplish while making a documentary.
Sure. So, Sean, were you the first one that he contacted about this? Was this basically like, were you in on the planning stages of this at all?
Yeah, actually. I mean, oddly enough, for most of Chris's projects, they usually evolve out of a conversation we're having. The ideas always come from him, but then just like, when we have conversation, he'll bring it up and we'll hash out a couple of things, and then he'll be like, it kind of motivates him to make the magic happen in a sense. In a lot of cases, like with the Housewives thing or the reality show, I thought it was a fantastic idea, just a lot of fun, just the idea, just the concept of it, and the fun that you can have with it. And he wanted to clarify that the show is not, just about Celebration. I also want to make sure that anybody watching realizes that the title is not a gatekeeping title. That's the other misconception. Not everybody gets that it's a sort of a parody take on the Real Housewives. Everything from the opening credits to the pose we're in holding the Death Star. If you don't watch any of those Housewives shows, which I hadn't, you don't know what any of that goes. You don't get any of those references. I had to see an episode or the opening credits to know what he was talking about. And then I got it. But yeah, if you don't know anything about those shows, you're going to look at it then and be like, hey, you're not, what do you mean real fan? Gatekeeper.
I think that was kind of a challenge because, when you do independent film projects and you don't do it for the money, you just make decisions based on how you feel. And I felt like I really wanted to do this. I was warned not to do it because I was warned not to call it the real fans. And this was before social media really grabbed us all by the balls, because this was before episode 8 and 9 were released. So you didn't have the negativity and fandom at full throttle like it is now. And a good friend of mine, Rebel Force Radio host Jimmy Mack, a lot of you guys know him. He goes, you might want to think about that title. He's like, you're going to piss a lot of people off. And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't make sense for me to copy the formula, copy the style, and be inspired by this and not knock the name off as well. So I went for it. And I have no regrets all these years later. And I feel like I'm defending it from time to time. But at the same time, it's like, why should I really care that much? And Bravo fans and Star Wars fans, there's not really a big crossover there. So it was going in uncharted waters.
Yeah, I bet there's not too many people that caught on to that right away.
No, probably not. I've spent more time explaining.
I'm glad you guys are having this on so we can talk about this stuff so we can help get the word out and get some more eyes on the show. Because once you watch it, you get it, and you can relate to it because, anybody who's been to Celebration or has a Star Wars collection or has a relationship with somebody who's not necessarily a Star Wars fan knows they've been in a lot of these moments that we have on the show.
I would like to add, too, that if my wife was never watching these reality shows, if I was never introduced to them, the show would have never been made. So I owe a lot of the credit to her. She's actually on the credits as a production consultant just because of her knowledge with the way that they do the shows.
So it's her fault is what you're saying.
It's her fault, yes. Blame it on my wife.
So, all right. So our buddy Chris Soboleski, name of the show again, please. Chris, it is Real Fans of the Saga.
Yes, they're real fans of the Saga.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you guys mentioned, I was wondering, when you said a lot of times like, okay, episodes 7 through 12 are coming. And I'm thinking, okay, well, most of, 2/3 of it, at least, what's been released is about Celebration. I'm thinking, okay, where are they going with this? So I'm glad that you clarified that because now that makes it clear that it is not just a Celebration centric type of a thing. So, that's funny to me that you guys got gatekeepers about that title. I mean, as a Star Wars fan, like, obviously, we're all huge nerds. Like, we have Star Wars shows. I never looked at that as, oh, these guys think they're better than me. That's a hell of a way to look at something, Well,
Chris, didn't you get a review where somebody accused us of gatekeeping and they hadn't even watched the show yet?
Probably. There's a couple that what you can do if you guys love the show, even if you like the show, go to Amazon and at least rate it, and just think about how hard it is to make a film. And if you're not a filmmaker, then just think about putting yourselves in a filmmaker's shoes before you just hit a 1 star. I feel like there's so many people out there that are quick to criticize, and the people that love this stuff, they don't have time to leave a review. So only the negative people do. As an independent filmmaker, that is the most important thing that somebody could do because the royalties on Amazon are not paying the bills. It's more of a labor of love, and it's more like having you guys say, hey, we love this show. We want you on this show to spend time with us chatting. I think that's the payoff, of all the hard work.
Yeah.
Well, for the record, we did not share logins. We actually purchased the show separately to make sure you got, your 2/3 of a cent or whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
If you have Prime, you get it for free. But if you don't have Prime, you gotta give them most of the money, and then I get a couple coins.
Well, they're charging now because it was on Prime, and I went to do I think my 4th or 5th rewatch, getting ready for the show, and it's for sale now. So I dropped $1.99 an episode. So.
Okay, I need to look into that. Amazon's getting very tricky with independent filmmakers. They've stopped accepting more titles because I think their catalog is so diverse And God knows why they're making people pay, and it's not part of Prime anymore. It was part of Prime since I put it up there about a year and a half ago. And I debated, right? Because I'm like, well, the whole show isn't done yet. But I was sitting on these 6 completed episodes, and I wanted to get them out there. And the gap between episode 6 and soon to be released episode 7, I had no idea that it was going to be this long delay. So I do owe people an apology for the amount of time that it's taken for sure, But everybody's been nice enough to be patiently waiting. But as you know, patience soon runs out.
So can you give us a peek behind the curtain a little bit? Like the events in the show take place in 2015. And here it is 2021, and we've got 6 of the 12 episodes. So what is the time that it takes between the filming and the publication of the show?
The time that it takes to film. Okay, so we started filming in 2015. The last thing that we shot was in 2017. And actually, our good friend Bo had passed away, and we still need to wrap up a scene with his widow and his daughter. And that is how, this is a spoiler alert, but this is how the show ends. It ends with the closure of, we're going to do a fast forward a couple years later. And then, it's me, Sean, Alfie, Bo's widow, and his daughter out in a park with his ashes. So it ends on a pretty heavy note. And I think between his death and with COVID shortly after, with some editing in between, I think those things have kind of stalled the production a little bit. I don't want to use those as excuses, but the first episode dropped on Amazon, I want to say it was about 2 years ago. And if you guys go to the Real Fans of the Saga Facebook page, you can see the rough cut episodes of 7, 8, and 9 for free. Those are out there. You're going to deal with some audio issues. You're going to deal with noise levels, color correction, that sort of thing. But the completed storyline of 7, 8, and 9 are out there. And I actually spent some time at the beginning of the pandemic kind of getting 7 and 8 out there.
Is it difficult to work on those episodes? I mean, having lost Bo, like that was that was shocking to me. Like I forget how I found that. I think our buddy Craig, that's how I met you, Sean, at that little hole in the wall bar for the karaoke contest at Forcella in Chicago. Yeah. He's the one. He was actually staying with us that weekend here in Cleveland, and he's the one that told us about the show. And then we were watching it with him at home, and he said, "Oh, by the way, Bo passed away." I was like, "What?" Like, so is that part of it? Is it the difficulty of having to complete this? Like, not to be heavy and ask something really dark, like I said, but no, how difficult is that? That's one of your best friends.
I think that
I'm not even in the editing room, but I can tell you that's absolutely difficult, because I'll have conversations with Cris while he's working. He'll call me after working on one of those episodes, and he's just like, "Man, it just hit me." And he'll talk about the footage he went through, and I'm getting hit while he's talking about it. So yeah, I can only imagine looking, trying to piece it together, just staring at it for umpteen hours a day, how rough it's got to be on you, buddy.
Yeah, I think I'm a deep and heavy person, so I do respect the question for sure. And you know what? It's very interesting, because to me, like, Bo made this candle, and he made the artwork on it. It's got some like Star Wars religious-based art, and I figured I would burn this because we're talking about the real fans of the saga. Sure. And you know what? To me, physically, I've lost so many people. I lost my dad when I was 7 years old, so I've always been around death. And I feel like I've known so many people go well before their time. I don't know a lot of people that have died from old age. So Bo was one of a list of many people, even though we were close friends. I feel like last year when I was getting 7, 8, and 9 out there, it's, when you're editing, your mind is kind of focused on the process. But then when I'm editing this stuff, I'm like, wow, it's weird hearing his voice and seeing him on the screen. And part of me is like, I'm glad we did this. I'm glad I got the footage. He's still, this sounds crazy, but I feel like he's still here, you know? Even though I don't see him in a physical form, I feel like he's living on. And on Mocktails from the Cantina, I cannot tell you how many tributes we've paid to him. And, you know, it's difficult, but at the same time, it's more surreal than it is difficult. And it's kind of a complicated thing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, moving on to something a little lighter. We don't want to obviously dwell on that part of it, you know?
Let's put it this way. When we come back for season 2, nothing but good times, right, Chris?
Well, I tell you, just before you move on to the next question, I kind of laughed when you said, are these difficult to work on? Removing Bo from the equation, his passing from the equation. These episodes have been the hardest thing as a filmmaker that I've ever worked on. And I think that has a little bit to do with the delay more than anything. These are not documentary style shows. I mean, a reality show, I have so much respect for the way these are done. And sometimes I feel like I bit out more than I can chew because I feel like I'm wearing, if you watch the credits of a reality show, there's like 12 editors. This is like me and a finisher, you know, that's polishing it up. So they're very, very difficult to work on, regardless of Bo's passing or not. But, well, I don't want to keep you from asking the next thing.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So, Sean, do you and Alfie have any say in the content? Like, are there certain things that he has filmed, or, you know, the crew has filmed, where you guys are like, maybe we should leave that out?
Well, when it comes to, obviously, Chris is the final word on the final cut, but. You know, there's been a couple of times I've suggested, you know, maybe you should leave this clip out because it might give away a little too close about where I live, you know, or stuff along, you know, things like that. But nothing too major, really. Alfie, he's tough to film with sometimes because he's just so busy all the time. So most of the stuff we have with him is when we're all in like a group or an outing or something like that. You know, we don't have a lot with him, just him at his house with his kids and family and whatnot. And that's fine. We'll work on getting more of that. It's like I've always told Chris, because he's had me in a lot of his projects, I'm like, you know, with you as always is Garth, Jay, you know, and Jay to his Silent Bob. That's sort of Alfie to me in that sense, you know, where I go, he goes kind of thing.
So how much footage, like, so the episodes are all about 22, 23 minutes long. How many hours of footage do you have to go through to get it down to 22 to 23 minutes?
Too much. I think that's the challenge. I'm looking at the hard drive right now. I don't want to hold it up because, God forbid, we filled the hard drive up a handful of years ago. I'd hate to like move it and then drop it. You know, it's in a safe spot. But
yeah, as we determined at the beginning of the show, if you kick your electronics, they start working again.
Yeah, right. All the footage is on here, and God forbid, man, there's so much footage. You know, one of the last things that we shot, to answer that question, it takes a long time to get all this footage down to 20 minutes.
If I may, just to keep in mind, you know, to pull back the curtain a little bit, as you were asking before, you know, you've got the stuff that we shoot when stuff's going on, like the stuff at Celebration. Then there's the conversations that we thought, we should have filmed that. So then we'll go back and we'll redo the conversation. And then there's the testimonials, which are shot on a completely separate day, you know, and a different setup, you know, with the testimonial background, whatnot. So then you're going back to, okay, what was going on? What are we talking about? What happened? So there's trying to remember what happened when we did it, and then talk about it. Well, he has to piece all that together. So yeah, you can imagine the complexity of finding the story from the footage. Because like he says, it's a reality show. There's got to be a story. You know, it's a reality show, but you got to have some kind of story arc of some kind. Otherwise, it's not interesting to watch. You know,
sure. Right.
How hard is it to, when you have the camera crews there and stuff, how hard is it to not ham it up for those cameras and just like, I got to assume there's got to be a point where you kind of try to overact whatever you're doing instead of just being yourself. Like how hard is it to stay in that, instead of trying to turn into a TV star as opposed to just being yourself?
Well, you know what? It's funny that you asked that, because as you know, Sean just loves to ham it up no matter where he's at.
Lies, dirty, filthy lies, and I just won't believe them.
So that's easy for him then.
Yeah, and again, it is a reality show. Sean loves to ham it up no matter where he's at, even if there's a camera not rolling. So
we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for. Sorry to cut you off. Remember, we would not be here if it wasn't for that Van Halen helmet, because that is my favorite band. And when we were at Forcella, I saw this dude in Van Halen Boba Fett armor, and I about crapped my pants. I went ballistic. And that's how we started talking. So continue. I had to like point that out. So
well, you got to think too. The Mandalorian helmet too. It was cool, but then we lost the great Eddie Van Halen, and now the helmet is like 10 times cooler because it's like Eddie is living on in a crazy roundabout way through that helmet.
John reached out to me after that happened. We talked. We went back and forth, and we're like, we're gonna treat each other to a toast and a beer at the next celebration over Eddie.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Eddie, now, man, I'll drink to that.
I'm with you. Cheers up, man.
As far as hamming it up, I don't necessarily think hamming it up was because Alfie doesn't ham it up at all. So it's like when you see Alfie on screen, like I think everybody's really themselves. And the thing is, because we're all friends and they're friends with the crew, there's this level of intimacy there that everything's kind of real. The relationships are real. The crew is real. Like a lot of those Housewives series, they have agents. They get on the show. They're not friends when they get on the show. They become friends through the production. That was already established between us when we were there. What I would say is the thing for us, I would have to cross the line and say, hey, Sean, I want to create a little bit more intensity here. So let's really piss off your wife by spreading out all your shit on the floor. Kind of thing.
So your living room is not always actually that bad. My wife was watching that the other night, and she said, that would drive me up an effing wall.
It's probably like that more often than not.
Semi-reality.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve can probably identify because that living room looks a lot like his old apartment. Yes. I remember before you and Gwen got the house, and that's exactly what it reminded me of.
Look, we have a question. We have a question for Sean. Does he have a yellow and black set of armor too?
That's when you know you got a fan. Yep. That's when you know you got a fan. Not yet. Not yet. That's been one of my bucket list things, is to mix it up a little bit there. My brother, who is actually a trained musician and guitarist, has donned my Mandalorian. We participated in the Chicago St. Patrick's Day Parade a couple of times, and I was sharing some of my mashup costumes just so I could have full representation. I have a lot, so I can't wear them all myself, as much as I'd like to. So I had to, lend them out to a few people. And my brother, he played it, and he hooked up some EVH mini amps onto his belt, like I have for the costume. Hooked up his guitar. He actually decoed his guitar to look like the Frankenstein, and he was jamming out to some Star Wars on it and playing some Eddie riffs at the same time while we were marching. It was pretty cool. But yeah, black and white would look pretty bad. We could do a whole EVH Fett tribe, man. I mean, you could do black and white, black and yellow. I mean,
yep.
I think you guys, that fan that just asked that question, I think he just opened up a can of worms.
Yeah. You got to go black and white after that. So, black and yellow, black and white, man.
Now you start getting into the wood grain from the OU812 years, then I'll respect your painting skill.
Wow. Yeah, never gonna get it. Don't get me started on the Eddie Van Halen guitar. So I'm like, you got to do the Ripley, you got to do the Steinberger.
Come on, it's 2021, AJ. You just go get that stuff hydro dipped in the wood grain, and it takes like 5 minutes. And
oh my god! So the first part of the show is at Celebration, and I've listened to mocktails from the Cantina, which we're going to get into here in a minute here. And you guys, now, Sean, have you been to all the celebrations as well, or is that just Chris?
I have been to every stateside celebration. I have not been to Japan, Europe, or Germany, or anything overseas. Chris has been to a couple of those.
I'm only one up on Sean. I only went to the first Europe one, but other than that, yeah, we've both been to all of them, and we've hung out at all those together, which is cool enough.
Funny story about how Chris and I know each other. Okay, so we originally met because we were both involved in one of our neighborhoods. I remember how TVs used to have public access TV channels?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we were on a backyard wrestling public access TV show together.
Nice.
The tag team. His character was called Death. We never had matches together, but we were on that show. Now, we knew of each other when we were doing it, but we didn't hang out with our friends. He knew my brother more than he knew me. But then flash forward to Celebration 1 in Denver. I'm walking with my girlfriend, my now wife at the time. I'm through the Denver airport, and this guy stops me in the middle of the airport, and he's like, "Hey, aren't you from the Backyard Wrestling Federation?"
I love the impersonation.
I'm in the Denver airport, and somebody's recognizing me from a Backyard Wrestling public access TV show.
That is awesome.
And then we'll be close friends ever since.
Yeah, if it wasn't for me and him going to Celebration 1, we would not have this awesome relationship that is, 21 solid years now. It was, we have Dan Madsen to thank for our friendship.
Yes, we do. We do.
I got to hit him up and see if we can get him on here, man. It's like we're trying to get guests now, and I'm just finally I'm going to ask everybody.
Yeah.
And isn't that the thing about Celebration? Chris, you and I were talking. Our last episode we had Mark Thrasher on, and you messaged like, "You guys know Thrasher?" And we're like, yeah. I'm like, "What? How do you know Thrasher?" And we met him at Celebration Orlando in 2010. At a mixer. We were just upstairs after hours. AJ and I were drinking, and we're talking about the Browns, because we're Browns fans. I hear behind me, "Oh man, the Browns." And I turn around and go, "Okay, who the hell do you like?" He's like, "Go Ravens." I was like, son of a bitch, a Baltimore fan. And we just ended up talking, and then it just all went, and here we are, so.
But that's the beauty. That's the beauty of what Celebration is. Okay.
I think that's the beauty of what Star Wars is, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
As big of a galaxy as Star Wars is, Celebration makes that family and friends unit almost small, because it's just you think about 30, 40, 50,000 people show up at a celebration, and you will make new friends every time you go, and you'll see you'll see those friends every time you go. And you make a point to make gatherings. It's just a wonderful community that got created through Celebration and Star Wars. I love it. You can stand in line with somebody. You don't know them from Adam. Start up a conversation and talk like you've been friends for 20 years.
Yeah. I completely agree. That's AJ and I've said this. We've done a lot of episodes talking about the stupidity that we purvey at Celebration, and but what we love about it most, we always say, is the people. It's Chris, I remembered this finally, but I met you on a plane.
You met me on a plane.
Yeah, it was just we were just talking. I mentioned Star Wars, and you turned, "Oh, you're a Star Wars fan," and it might have been from Celebration to Celebration, but yeah, and I remember because you were like, "Yeah, I've made a couple documentaries," and I was like, "Oh, no kidding." So random stuff like that, and it's so I hunted you down to buy your DVD. I had you autograph it, and now here you are on my show. It's little things like that.
It's a small. What's funny? I got to ask you, and a lot of people that know me, they're wondering the same thing. Did I sell you the DVD on the plane?
Okay, I'm not. I'm not going to say no. Because you weren't salesman guy. Because I think if you were salesman guy, even as nerdy as I am for Star Wars, I might have been like, well, I'm not into salesmen. I work with them, and they really piss me off. So like
I've been known as like a promoting horror, but there's a difference between somebody that promotes and somebody that's a salesman, right?
Thank you. I was just about to say that. Yeah. No, I just remembered, and I was like, oh, I got to look this guy's stuff up, and I did. And then, so when I was at the next celebration, I bought it, you autographed it, whatnot. So no, technically, no, you did not. Indirectly, you did.
Yeah, because honestly, knowing JT as long as I have, had you pulled a copy of that out of the overhead bin, he would have got off the damn plane with that thing in his hand, no doubt. If you would have said, "Oh, oddly enough, I got 30 copies in the overhead bin," John would have bought probably 3 of them off of you before you guys landed.
I think he actually did buy 2. I think you have 2 of those, don't you, JT?
I do. I wasn't going to bring that up, but yeah, I have an autographed one.
Hotel room with 2 copies of the same movie. I'm like, why 2?
Because he's got the collectible one and the watchable one.
Right.
See, look at it.
One's going to stay sealed, and the other one is the when you open. You know how it. Yeah, it's a funny story. It's like you hear about all these random moments, but you wonder, are they random moments or is it the will of the Force?
It was probably the will of the Force.
Yes, the will of the Force. I'll go with that.
Yes,
sure.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, because again, you were filming at Celebration, and Celebration is a time for you to hang out with your friends and all this stuff. But at that one in Anaheim, it was almost like you were working.
Yes.
So you do say in the document, or in the series, I shouldn't say documented, but in the series, you say that when you were out at the brewery with your buddy from England, you were saying that it was kind of a weird celebration for you because you were not staying at the convention center and you weren't like there 100% of the time. So did it kind of take away some of the enjoyment for you to actually, like, in hindsight, I'm sure at the time it was like, you're going a million miles an hour, but like in hindsight, did it take a little bit of enjoyment away from it for both of you guys to have to be quote unquote working while you're at Celebration with your friends trying to just nerd out on Star Wars?
Man, I would say yes and no. I would say that Anaheim, the layout of that convention sucked. And
yeah.
I feel like if I was just there as a fan, just without filming, every time Star Wars comes out with something new, I'm looking to create some kind of independent thing based around that, because that's just, I've been doing that since I did a concert when episode 1 came out. We did an all Star Wars concert back at the AMC movie theater. So I'm always trying to, because I'm inspired by Star Wars as somebody that creates. So Star Wars always pushes me in that direction. But,
sure.
God, you know what? That is a double-edged sword right there, because I think it added to the experience. And at the same time, yeah, it was exhausting because we were filming all the time. I remember the thing that sucked the most is day 1, everybody's hanging out at the rental house, and I'm driving around to the hotels trying to pick up, not the hotels, the airports, trying to pick up establishing shots. And I'm like, I'm at a Star Wars celebration and I'm shooting at the airport? Because you want to establish, the planes coming in, we're at the airport, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so, trying to get all the B-roll, right?
All the B-roll, yeah, right. And usually when you're with the production, they have a B-roll crew that goes out and shoots all that stuff, especially in sports, right? But, it's a double-edged sword. I think the greatest thing, though, is that we captured that on film for what it's worth, hindsight. And the fact that Bo is gone, and that was that was not his only Star Wars celebration, because we went to Orlando. But when me, Sean's wife, and Bo went to Orlando in 2017, we were wondering, should we be filming? And I'm like, you know what, dude, we're not going to film this time. And I don't regret not filming there, because I felt like I made up for the lost time. I wanted to just go as a fan, where Anaheim, my mission was completely different. It was more of a working mindset. So,
truth be told, there was a lot of stuff that I wish we had on film because it was so good. But you wonder if we would have filmed it, would it still have been as good?
Exactly.
You know, because it was just us being us. And I'll cherish that road trip with everybody, especially because we got to have with Bo for the rest of our life. Just because that was, you can't get that moment back. You can't. It's because it's just, I love it. And I'll tell you what, talk about Chris seeming like he's going a mile a minute. He's like that even when he isn't filming or promoting or doing something like that. I'll give you an example. For example, so we were trying to, me, I think Alfie, and Chris, we were trying to find, I think it was one of Jimmy Max Rebel Force Radio's events before Celebration. And you know that scene in Forrest Gump when he's getting chased by the pickup truck and he turns the corner and he's halfway down the trail already? Yep. That was Chris going down the corridors of the hotel. He turns the corner, Alf and I come around the corner, and he's already at the end of the hall. And that's just him walking.
that was pre-pandemic, of course.
Now, which hotel did you guys? Which hotel was this?
Well, we're talking about the hotel in Chicago, or we're talking about
17. I think you were talking about.
Well, in Orlando, we stayed at my time. I have a timeshare. We stayed at the timeshare in Orlando, and then we stayed at a hotel the last night. And you know, it's funny. Wherever I go, I do go a million miles an hour, or a million miles a minute, however you want to say. But yeah, you know what? I think I don't think I would ever film at I don't like to say never. But I'm not interested in filming at a Star Wars Celebration again because I had my camera crew on standby for the one in Chicago. And I'm like, dude, don't even bother because I just want to, again, like you said, John, I didn't want to be in my working mind. I just wanted to enjoy it from a fan standpoint. So
it was in our hometown. It's in our backyard. I want to take advantage of it, you know? Yeah.
So it is. I'm going to ask one Chicago question, and then move on to Chris's new show, and then let's talk a little bit of Celebration. We've got Celebration veterans, and and Steve's heard all of our stories, so let's compare.
Oh, yeah.
But all right, you guys are from Chicago. That is my favorite city to visit. Best Chicago deep dish, go.
Oh, one of my favorite places is a place called Chicago Street Pizza. It's across the street from where the St. Valentine's Day Massacre happened.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good place.
It's sort of an upside down pizza pot pie almost. They
call that the grinder, right?
No, I think it's called Chicago Street Pizza. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
The pizza that you order there, that's like an upside down.
Right. So what they do is they take a bowl and they put all the ingredients. They put the cheese at the bottom. And then they fill it up with all the toppings, and then they put the crust over the top of the bowl. And then they cook it, and the crust hardens around the bowl. And then when they bring it out to you, they flip it over and pull the bowl out, and then the cheese settles over everything, and it's just a bunch of ooey goodness.
You know what? That place that you're talking about, that's a really special place, not only for the historical significance, but nobody else does pizza like them. And this place is very small. It's not necessarily a tourist trap because of the size of the place. That's got to be one of my favorite places as well. But I got to go boring and say Lou Malnati's over Giordano's.
Oh, you didn't even mention Geno's. I got Geno's in my freezer. I literally order it from Goldbelly.
Now we're talking about the deep dish places which Chicago's known for, but the reality is Chicagoans don't traditionally eat deep dish. We
really?
Bar cut. We get bar cut thin crust pizzas pretty much all the time. Cut in the squares.
Well, when my daughter's birthday party, we always do pizzas, and I always order a deep dish pizza for that event because it's a special event and it's the only time we eat deep dish. But when I worked in the TV world, and I do a lot of sports television stuff, and the funny thing is that I work for MLB Network and NHL Network, and it's based out in New York. And the funny thing is, they call the pizza pie, right? They call it a pie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We don't call that pie is like you want strawberry, you want blueberry.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that the girl that I was working for, she's like, "Oh, we're in Chicago. We got to order a deep dish." And these guys from New York, they're like, "Oh my God, did you see the size of that pie?" It was like Godzilla was a deep dish pizza to them.
Yeah, so it's a deep dish for Chicagoans is actually just a once in a while thing.
Yes, once in a while thing. Yes.
I've got to give an honorable mention to Pisano's for their low carb deep dish.
Yes.
I've had Pisano's. Yes, that's good stuff too.
No, have you had the low carb?
You got to have the low carb. Let the fat guy take the lead on this one. So there's a Pisano's. It was like the closest pizza place to what the hell's the McCormick. And
like this.
So AJ and I, our celebrations go like this. We travel on Tuesday. We go someplace cool on Tuesday night. Wednesday's kind of like a warm-up day with fans, and then Thursday through Sunday's a convention. Monday's a travel day. Then Tuesday we take off of work to just get back into normal real life, and then we're back to real life on Wednesday. Well, anyway, so we drove this time because it's 5.5 hours for us, and we found Pisano's was the closest place. And we're like, let's just get a deep dish pizza. Well, on the menu, they have their low-carb deep dish pizza, which is deep dish pizza, but the crust is not crust. It is Italian sausage. And I said, God damn it. Before we leave Chicago, I am having that. So our buddy Mark Thrasher, you guys, we talked about Thrasher.
Yeah.
He got into town like 2 days later, and we're like, let's go do this. And I ordered it. I will never in my life have anything less healthy, but I will also never in my life have anything more delicious. It was glorious. Like, it literally brought tears to my eyes. I was like, I know somewhere in my life I did something right, and God wants me to be happy because he put this in front of me. It's that good. So shout out to Pisano's.
Yeah, well, next time you should have Alfie on. You want to talk food? He's the foodie of the town, of the group, for sure.
Well,
he knows all the hot spots.
Well, Alfie and I are going to go to war if I get him on, because I was listening to your episode of Mocktails with him, Chris, and your either or question. You ready for this, AJ and Steve? And you'll understand why Alfie and I got a little bit of a beef, and I haven't even met the guy.
Oh, God, he talked shit about Han, didn't he?
No, he did not do that. But you'll understand. The question was, you can only have one or the other, either or. The Force Awakens or Revenge of the Sith, and he picked The Force Awakens.
He's
Them's
a dead
fighting
man.
words on this show. Them's fighting words on this show.
Nope.
All right, so.
And he was a big fan of Revenge of the Sith when it came out, too,
That's a whole nother episode. Maybe that'll be a mocktails. It'll be a cage match between me and Alfie going. So here we go. See, Joseph Wren trying to piss me off even more. The correct answer is space whales. That would make me even more angry. Yes. The space whales in Rebels are my trigger point.
Okay, I've got a good either or then. I gotta get this one in. JT, either or, space whales or World Between Worlds.
Oh my God. Is carving my own eyes out with a blunt spoon an option?
AJ is trying to work his way into getting kicked off the show 2 episodes in a row.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, all right, guys. There we go. All right, so enough of him and his bad attitude. Let's get back to the
21 months.
All right, so AJ, you had something you wanted to bring to the show. This is pretty cool. This is for you, Chris. AJ's girlfriend did some research.
Yeah, we were talking about before we went live. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys already talked about this. Well, now there's no point for me bringing it up. I wanted it to go live. I thought that was great stuff.
And you know what's funny? AJ said, "Hey, we should be recording this right now." We should be recording this right now.
As JT's having internet problems.
Yeah.
But look at are those notes on the real fans of the saga?
Uh-huh.
Yes, this is what she physically wrote while watching the show.
Yeah,
so I want to get your feedback on this. Yeah, this is literal homework, right?
Yes.
So point number 1, interesting format like the Real Housewives franchise, which is geared towards women. 4 males starring in series with wives supporting roles. What do you think about that? Sounds like she nailed it.
Yeah, that's right on.
Yeah.
So point number 2.
An original idea was to do the wives instead of the guys, but there wasn't enough substance there with Star Wars fandom because our wives are the ones that put up with our obsession with Star Wars. And I do want to say put up with, there's pros and cons to it, I still sneak toys into my basement. I don't want my wife to know that I buy. But yeah, I think you're going right on there.
I'm with you, Chris. Tag team.
Yeah.
All right. So
actually, Chris, I think your wife kind of nailed Celebration 4 minutes into your first episode. She said, you look at Star Wars stuff, you buy Star Wars stuff, and you drink. And I was like, holy crap, that's like it in one sentence.
That was Steinbeckian. That was Steinbeckian in its simplicity and descriptiveness. It really was.
Again, it is a reality show.
But it's cool. You really got the heart of the fandom, though. Like point number 2 here says family, traditions, nostalgia, bridging generations. And we've all got stories like that, right? Like you introduced it to your kids, your parents showed it to you. Like it's cool to like capture that as the narrative of the series, I think. Was that what you were going for?
No, you know what? I think her note on that is definitely something that I respect. I feel like I did that most with The Force Within Us, the Star Wars, the second Star Wars documentary I made. And you know what's funny? Because I don't know if this is a mistake or not, but I made the real fans of this saga for the audience that was already there for The Force Among Us and The Force Within Us. So if you watch the real fans of the saga without watching the documentaries, I feel like you're kind of missing out on a lot of backstory because those documentaries are kind of the prequels to the reality show. But I'm glad that your girlfriend saw that point,
Yeah, she's, like I said, she did her homework before I did. So this was actually kind of enlightening to hear from her. I like number 3 also, and I think this is also your other documentaries too, where she says like-minded people gather and different opinions and ideas are valued. There's a sense of community, which again I think is fantastic, and I think that's why we're all here, right?
Yes. I think whatever Star Wars project all of us do, I think that statement is all-encompassing.
Yeah, that usually happens that 1 week every 2 years, and then the other 51 weeks we just argue with each other and berate each other online, basically. Right?
Yeah.
But celebration, the week of celebration, though, camaraderie, though.
That's like filling the gas tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know what they should have?
Celebration.
What would be great at Celebration is they should have like a foam pit or some sort of like a padded arena where people can walk in with their Twitter handles and you can just have like real beefs out in person. Just give them like foam sticks or something. Just let them go to town.
Set up an arena, Star Wars, American Gladiator style.
Right. Exactly. That'd be fantastic.
I would never get anywhere else.
We play a lot of games on mocktails from the cantina, and I think I'm going to steal that for a game segment. I think that idea that you just said, AJ, is brilliant, man.
That is awesome.
I would love to get your take on this next one, though, because I feel this is true, too, and I'm not sure why. When she says a lot of people look at conventions as nerdy, but Star Wars transcends that. Why do you think that is?
The question is why is Star Wars not nerdy when everything else is?
Yeah.
In a way,
because we're all Star Wars.
Like Star Wars broke through pop culture.
Yeah, I think, you know what? It took a long time to do that. I think it took George making all 3 of the prequels to break that down. But I think there's a little bit of Star Wars in all of us. In every single person, there's a little bit of Star Wars. Even if they don't like it, it's still in there because their dad or their brother or their sister loves it. And, to talk smack about Star Wars is to talk smack about yourself or your loved ones,
Yeah, that's a fair point.
That's a really good point.
That before.
When I was growing up, to answer that, to feed off of that, I always felt Star Wars was always it was like when it came to sci-fi shows, people always thought, sci-fi was just always for nerds. But Star Wars always had that cool factor. You had Han Solo and the Princess and Chewbacca, I used to, if you saw people who were fans of Star Trek, they were always kind of nerdy because it was all technical and logic and this, that, and the other thing. And Star Wars was more the fun, adventure, fantasy, Flashpoint and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of had that cool factor sort of built into it. And, it was always cool. Star Wars was just always cool to be into. It was never really thought of as being nerdy. And then you look at, in pop culture, the way it's grown, there isn't a TV show, a movie, or sitcom, or drama, or anything or news even, that won't drop a Star Wars reference at the drop of a hat. I mean, DC TV shows, all those superhero shows on the CW, they're owned by, Warner Brothers? Not even Disney affiliate or Lucasfilm affiliate. They drop Star Wars references on there all the time, But it's just like it's everywhere. It's just one of those things that the world could connect it to in some way, shape, or form from the day it was released till today, and it's just been an ongoing thing. And that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's fantastic. Like you said, you can just talk to anybody and find something in common with them and learn more about them as people through your shared love of Star Wars. That's what I love most about the fandom, is getting to know the people outside of the fandom,
I think because of what Star Wars became with 7, 8, 9 and social media, I would also think that some friendships based on their opinions about certain things with Star Wars, that could be a little damaging to the relationship as well.
There's no denying that's has created a wedge within the fandom of sorts, which I don't like to really get into because it's not constructive. It's not the Star Wars fandom I grew up with, and that's not the kind of fandom I want to be a part of. So.
It's not constructive, so don't feed the trolls on our Twitter page.
I behave for the most part. It's just when somebody posts something really stupid, I have to tell them that's really stupid. Like, example, and then we'll move on. When someone says, The Last Jedi alienated all of the hardcore fans, like, no. Some of us really like that movie. Stop saying all. That's not true. Just because you did not like it does not mean that I didn't like it too.
So, only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Exactly.
He says absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. All right. So AJ, continue with the notes because this is good. I think Sean's going to like number 6.
Interesting dynamics in marriages in Star Wars. So what does Star Wars do for or to your marriages?
Well, that much is pretty much obvious when you see me and Lisa together. God bless her. She plays along. She lets me drag her to these things, and don't let her fool you. She does enjoy herself, but she'll go kicking and screaming before she gets there. But once she's there, she has a good time. But God bless her for putting up with me and letting me get away with a lot of the stuff I get away with that I probably shouldn't get away with. Whether I tell her about it or not. But no, I couldn't have asked for a better life partner in that sense. She's just always been supportive and gone along with me. And we've become sort of convention, what's the veterans in a sense. Like, we know, don't buy at the first table. Or if we know we got exclusives to get, we will divide and conquer. So it's a great. She's great to have along, and I know it might be it might be a little annoying for the boys, like Chris and Albie, to always have the missus along with me when they want some guy time. But hey, I'm a package deal. What can I say?
No, you know what? I gotta say, I think that I love it when Sean and Lisa are together, and they're together all the time. And I love Lisa, and I know. Lisa is as much of a good friend as Sean. But Sean and Lisa have a relationship that I don't have with my wife. Like, my wife's like, no, I don't want to go to a Star Wars convention. I do not want to go.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
And you know what? I won't hold that against her. The thing about Star Wars, like my daughter's made several comments that the reason why she's not interested in Star Wars is because of the guns and the violence. And I'm like, I can respect that. Yeah, there are guns and there's violence in Star Wars. It's more than that. But to a 6-year-old, if that's what they see Star Wars as, I don't want to push it down her down her throat. But I will say that my wife has been very supportive of my creativity, like the mocktails from the cantina and the reality show. She's been very supportive of the time, and I've spent so much of my free time on those projects. She's been supportive with that. But the other day, I was editing some stuff for mocktails, and she's like, you know what? You got to take it easy. She's like, it's not like you're working for Bravo on the Real Housewives series. And I'm like, yeah, you're right about that. I don't want to take that as a slam, but sometimes I feel like the passion that I have for the creativity, for the visuals that I create with the documentaries, the reality show, and the mocktails, the time and the passion are on a whole nother level. And I feel like, it's a labor of love. Right. And my wife has been very supportive of that, and I can't thank her enough for that,
Yeah, that's something that I can totally relate to, because as a musician, I met my wife when I was playing live, and she loves live music. So, I mean, Sean, like you, AJ, Steve will tell you this. All my friends will tell you this. My wife and I are a package deal. We go everywhere together, and it's not one of those relationships where she's like, I have to be with you. It's like she likes to go where I like to go. She likes to be involved. She's interested in these things. And to the point where, before we got married, I had been to a couple celebrations, and the first celebration that I went to after we got married, which was this one, that's in Real Fans, she slipped a note into my book bag that I didn't know was there, and it was handwritten note, said, I'll miss you more than stormtroopers miss their targets, stuff about, she made all these Star Wars references. I'm like, oh my God. And, finally she's like, I'm going to the next celebration. I was like, well, it's 4 days. I said, and I'm warning you, AJ and I act like complete animals for a solid 6 days.
Yep.
So she's like, well, I'm just going to go for 1 or 2. I'm like, you're going to want to go to all 4. I'm telling you. So sure enough, she goes to a day and a half. And the very first thing out of her mouth as we're walking out on her second day is, I'm going to the whole damn thing next time. Like, she absolutely loved it. So until it hit about 8, 9 o'clock, and then she's like, I'm going to bed. I don't even want to see what the hell's going to go on now. So, yeah. But yeah, I'm with you, Sean. And, I have that relationship with my wife, but I also have the same relationship as you do, Chris, because, being a musician in my past, like it's always been a hobby. I almost got a record deal, my little claim to fame, but, she supports the creative side of it. I'm up here doing this, every other week, I have a music podcast. I'll guest on some Star Wars podcasts. I'll guest on some music podcasts. So having that support for your hobby, is awesome, because for us, it's not really a hobby. Like you said, it's a labor of love. It's like, we're passionate about this. Like we honestly love doing this, Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to do this next one for Sean here. All right, H, I'm going to steal one from you, and then the last 2 points will combine to one. All right, Sean, she noticed this, and she loved it with a smiley face. Mashup costumes. Where are we at with the Mandalorian mashups?
Well, the pandemic, I would have been the perfect time for me to really dive into creating some more, but I'm a cable guy, so there was no rest for me during the pandemic. I had to make sure people had their home offices to work from home. I had to make sure they had the Wi-Fi for the homeschooling. So there was no break for me in that sense. But that doesn't mean the ideas stop flowing. I've got a handful in my back pocket that I got to break out and get into. I mean, I probably have 9 or 10 of them that I've made just for myself, not including the few that I've made for Alfie and for Chris and for other friends. So, I mean, we're not like a huge costume group. We've got some notoriety because of the group photos that we've put together at the last few celebrations. We have members that are all across the U.S. and overseas. They'll send me pictures of their costumes that they're working on to the Facebook page, and I'll put them up. So we're not like the 501st or the Rebel Legion or anything like that, because we believe in simply just having fun with your fandom. So there's no standards you have to apply to. Just, you like one thing, mix it with a second thing, and you remember. And that's it. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And it doesn't matter if you're top cosplayer or a first timer. It all counts to me.
I would say the agenda of the Mandalorian mashups is to get attention. That's the only agenda. There's nothing else.
I mean, I've said it before. When you're walking around Celebration, you see a stormtrooper at a celebration, it's like white noise. There's a million of them.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
But you see the Mandalorian walking around, you're like, hey, that's what we got here.
Well, I got to answer that. It's to get attention and have fun. And you know, when I wear that costume, I got the Cubs and the Rays Fett. When I wear those costumes and people come up to me, Sean loves like taking a million photos. I'm inside the costume after a hangover, ready for another beer. And I'm like, oh, my God, I'm taking 30, 40 photos already. I'm like, you know, when can I take this freaking helmet off?
Yeah.
But it's fun because I know that people that come up to these creations that Sean has made, it's the biggest compliment when they want to have a photo with that, because it's something that, like Sean said, stormtroopers are white noise. There's a lot of stormtroopers out there. But when you see a Van Halen Fett, you better take a photo with him, because you're not going to see another Van Halen Fett after you pass through him, you know?
That's like with my very first celebration. I walked into the convention center, and literally the very first two things I saw, the first cosplay, first was Indiana Jones, which was hilarious to me. I was like, all right, Lucasfilm, I get it. But the guy standing next to him was Peter Griffin Han Solo from the Family Guy Star Wars specials. And I'm like, the guy had shaved his facial hair into like a butt chin, like the Peter Griffin butt chin. I'm like, okay, I'm already at home. Like, I haven't seen a stormtrooper, I haven't seen Vader, I haven't seen Han, I've seen Peter Griffin Han Solo. Like, this is home for me. All right,
I love it. I love seeing all the creativity when people just get weird with their costumes. That is the absolute best.
Bottom line, I always say, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have fun while you're doing this. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point of doing it? You know,
I was AJ's handler in Anaheim, and he had finished his ARC Trooper hammer, and we keep looking for him in the background of a bunch of outdoor shots, by the way. And man, I mean,
if you've got any more footage of the clone gathering, let me know.
But I mean, you're right. I mean, if you're not having fun, you might as well not do it, because I mean, to your guys' point, I mean, he got stopped every 7 feet for a picture. I mean, and I knew that, because you have to assume that's how it is, but especially with his character being a little more on the rare side, he got stopped and stopped and stopped and stopped and stopped. I mean, it was crazy.
I was at a Star Wars Day that we have in Joliet every year, and I wore a Chicago Blackhawks Boba Fett, and
that's a good one. I like that one.
After the parade, we take a big group photo, and then you sort of break off. I got stuck in an alley, people taking pictures. It was like Disney World, with a line of people wanting to get a picture with the character. It was crazy. I was loving it. And you know the artist Dave Dorman?
Yeah.
So he, Chris and I both know Dave, and we consider him a friend, and we see him a lot of time around town. He told me, he's just like, I love what you do with the mashups, because you're bringing smiles to the fans, and he's right. It makes me happy every time when you see somebody catch me out of the corner of their eye, and they look at what I've just created, whether it's an abomination or something that they love, and the smile comes across their face, and that's when I know, okay, I did all right.
Nice. That's the payoff.
It's the payoff. It absolutely is the payoff. That's where I get my eye, when I see the smiles and then wanting to come over for the photo. That's what I like.
Right. All right. So we got one more on Miranda's notes, and then we have to talk about mocktails from the cantinas. We have to get to that. So last one, and we'll combine these two. All different classes, races, economic backgrounds, ages, and worldwide and lasting friendships. That's what she took as like probably the main point out of the show. So
I feel like she's watched The Force Among Us and The Force Within Us to get to that note. Because I feel like I missed that in the reality show, because I already did that in the previous documentaries. But the fact, one, that she took all those notes, I would love to meet this woman. And I just think it's so cool that she paid that much attention to detail. And she's reading into the reality show, but she's picking up things that I had already done. So somehow they've morphed over. But again, that really sums up what Star Wars fandom is all about, those last 2 points, you know?
Yeah. And as we said, Celebration, it really is like you meet all these different people. Like, we talked about Thrasher, and I know, our buddy Craig is in the comment section. Like, he came and stayed with us in Cleveland. We took him hanging out here and everything. And even like I said, Sean, like me and you, like we were doing the Force Cella 2 this year, that virtual karaoke thing with Spencer and all those guys, we met these guys at Force Cella 2, and AJ and I doing our typical AJ and me, and we get drunk at Celebration. We just start going on an adventure, and all of a sudden we're like, let's go, guys. And so, Spencer and Alan and I'm telling you, Spencer and John and Alan ended up in some random hotel room with people we didn't know. Everyone's like, let's take our pants off and drink. And we were like, okay. So we're all standing there in our boxers, and now we talk to Spencer all the time. We're going to have him on and stuff like that. Sean, me and you like love Van Halen, and that's what it's all about. Like, not taking your pants off, but like having those sorts of ridiculous experiences with other fans.
It, though?
Yeah. Hey, what can I say? Is it wrong? Of course not. It's everything that's right.
Yeah,
Chris, are you in your sleepy pants right now? Are you in your sleepy
what?
pants?
I got to show. I am not in my. I got my jeans on, and not sleepy pants for me.
See, that's proof I was listening. So
yes. I coined a whole new phrase of sleepy pants. Like nobody's heard that before.
Focusing on the fact that he calls them sleepy pants.
Well, I do have to say it's funny because you live so close to Jimmy Mack. I don't know how many minutes it would take you to get to his place, but AJ and I should say, probably live closer to Jason Swank than you do to Jimmy Mack, because Jason lives maybe 20-25 minutes from me, to the point where. Yeah, so he's in a suburb called Canton. I'm in a suburb called Wadsworth, and it's so close that remember in Chicago they had that enormous 1-day snowstorm.
Yes,
that out of nowhere.
Yeah,
we met Jimmy and Jimmy and Jason in the cafeteria, and we got to talking, and AJ and I were like, yeah, we're from right up the road from you, and he says, I don't want to. He actually said like, well, I'm supposed to fly out tonight, but if I can't get a flight, I hate to be presumptuous, but would I be able to like get a ride home with you guys? And I was like, well, of course. And I'm thinking that would be the best story ever for our show. So yeah, we went to Celebration. We had a good time. And then we had to drive Jason Swank from Rebel Force Radio back to his place.
So did you guys drive him back?
Thankfully his flight was good, but okay. Yeah, it was kind of touch and go. So, so speaking of Jason Swank, we have to get into your new show, Mocktails from the Cantina, and you just celebrated 1 year.
Yes.
And your episode last week, I believe, was part 1 of your 1 year anniversary special, correct?
Yes, correct. Yes.
So part 2 is coming out. Is it this weekend? In a couple days?
Part 2 is got to come out Friday, the last day of the month. I've had really strict schedule with myself where for season 2 of Mocktails, it's got to drop before the last day of the month, and I've been really on that,
Right.
So part 2 is going to come out on, I believe Friday is the last day of the month.
Yes. Mm-hmm. AJ and I will be at the NFL draft while you're feverishly putting your show out. So, all right. So, I mean, Sean, you remember the 400 Club? I got that. You're one of the highest viewed episodes on Mocktails from the Cantina. So,
started pushing the Jimmy Mack show. I was number 2 for almost that whole year.
Look at that. You lost out to a 15-year podcaster. Oh no.
Right. Keep telling me I'm not that interesting, but I'll take it.
Well, no, I will say, Sean, you're very, very interesting. It's just that Jimmy Mack and Jason Swank had the following. I think it's very ironic that Jason.
How's anybody going to compete with the Maxter and Swank, man? I mean, come on now.
I think the most ironic thing is that Jason has almost double the views that Jimmy has. And Jimmy didn't want to promote it because he goes, I was wasted on your show. And it was funny because I always like to be respectful of people's times. And I always like to remain on some kind of a schedule. And usually the shows I record are about an hour long, and I like to keep them under an hour. And Sean was, like you, going back to the real fans, I reached out to Sean first. I reached out to Sean first for The Force Among Us, The Force Within Us, the real fans of the Saga, and Mocktails from the Cantina. Sean is my first. He's the guinea pig.
I feel like I'm your sounding board to make sure it's still a good idea to.
Yeah. and Sean's got this. We have this friendship, and he's got this spirit that I know if I start with him, I know he's going to be inspirational enough to push me on to the next step. And then we're just going to kind of keep stepping stones. And I think that's why, like, people that have shows or podcast shows or YouTube shows, they don't celebrate the 1-year anniversary. I'm celebrating this thing like it's my birthday or my anniversary.
Right.
Because I feel like it's such a big deal to me, because when the pandemic started, I'm like, it would be a good idea to do a talk show format, because SNL was doing Zoom, in the beginning of the pandemic, and everybody was getting away with this low budget production because that's the way it was done in the beginning of last year. And I felt like I was able to do what the pros were doing. And I was kind of like living my fantasy, but to keep it going on a regular basis and to say, hey, let's go for round 2, I cannot not celebrate that, because I feel like the fact that I kept it up going for that long was a personal achievement, as it was,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So explain exactly, like, what is the show? What do you do? Like, I mean, you said you're not a salesman earlier. You try not to be, but both of you, and Sean, feel free to jump in to support your buddy Chris here. Like, sell everybody on Mocktails from the Cantina.
Well, okay, Mocktails from the Cantina is a fun 1-hour show that really celebrates all the old productions that we did. It has all the people on the show that I interview are people that were part of The Force Among Us, The Force Within Us, the real fans of the Saga, and so forth. And it's just a fun conversation. I mean, even Sean was drinking a beer on the show. He opened his beer on the show before I had a first sip of my drink. So it's a very loosey-goosey but personal show that talks about Star Wars and steps outside the box and talks about life in general. And
it's not always Star Wars. It's Star Wars centric, but
yes.
That doesn't mean that's the only topic of discussion that can be talked about. Chris, obviously, is a big music and baseball fan, so that will always encroach on everything he does. And that's welcome, because it's not. It doesn't. As much as we love Star Wars, we do have other interests. Like John and I, we realized our love for Van Halen together. Star Wars is what brings us together, but it's everything else that keeps us together.
Yeah, and I think that is what the show is about. But it's free, and it's on YouTube. But to be a salesman or a promoter, I decided I would do a Patreon campaign, because the YouTube shows, I don't make any money from that. And the amount of time that I spent on editing that is just stupid, ridiculous, crazy. Season 1, I was busting out about 2 episodes a month. And now I'm like, okay, you know what? I can't do that. I'm going to create something special for the Patreon people. Those are the people that are paying me to give them content. And what you get as a Patreon member, we have, now I'm being a total salesman. So you can get a bottle opener, you can get a coaster. And I do this exclusive podcast. I do this exclusive look inside my collection where I take a piece and I talk about it. And it's cheap, right? You can do it for $2. You can produce the show and get an IMDb credit for $25 and a slew of other things, my back catalog and whatnot. And Patreon members are really the ones that are getting the exclusive content, the exclusive behind-the-scenes footage. but they're getting the involvement and they get input into what I'm putting out there, and they're helping me produce the show, you know? So Mocktails, in short, is a celebration of everything that I've done and everything that's next to come.
So go through a list of some of the guests you've had. Obviously, you've had Sean. We talked about Alfie's blasphemous ass. So
that's a guest that you definitely want to have on. Trust me, he doesn't hold back.
He's going to hear me saying this stuff, be like, I think I'm going to kick this guy's ass rather than be friends with him when we finally meet up. So you're that loudmouth jerk from Cleveland, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna wait till that train system's built. That's gonna go through Cleveland. That's gonna get us to Chicago in like an hour or whatever the hell it is.
Amtrak extension.
Yeah.
That the Tesla company we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, and then John can just be an hour away from getting his ass kicked about it. So.
Yeah, right.
Well, you know, the guests that I've had on the show, I've had Sean, Alfie, I've had the wives on, I've had Jimmy Mack on, Jason Swank on.
You had your daughter on, didn't you?
Say again?
You had your daughter on, didn't you?
My daughter was on, yes. And the funny thing is, because I'm a sensitive person, which I don't belong in a social media world. But I did not want anybody to comment negatively or do a thumbs down on my daughter's episode. And it was the only episode that I blocked all comments or any thumbs up, thumbs down. I wanted that to be more a time for me and her, you know? But yeah, I had my daughter on. I had the professor from The Force Among Us on, the Tenutos. I've had Robert Hynes, Sean's brother, has been a musical guest several times. You know, we do a live show every month, and if you're a Patreon member, you know, you get involved in a name draw on the show where you win something cool on every live episode. All you got to do is tune in live, and you have to, you know, comment that you're watching the show. Dan Manson has been on the show. Again, I try to keep it exclusive to the people that I've worked with in the past. It's more of a behind this. The only people that were involved in the show that were not involved in any productions. I had this social media sensation. Her name is Vader Girl. I had her on. Jimmy Mack's brother, Billy, he was never involved directly in my project. So those are two people that I've had on the show that are not involved in the productions. And next month in May, I have Steven Sansweet coming on.
That's the one I was going to ask you to mention. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
I'm really excited about that because Steve has been an inspiration for me since I rediscovered Star Wars in '92. He was involved in fandom back then. And Michael Wistock, a good friend of mine, he's on the board of Rancho Obi-Wan. He's best friends with Steve. Steve was also featured in The Force Within Us. So it only makes sense that Steve is on Mocktails from the Cantina. So he's the May episode. And I'm super excited and probably a little nervous, actually, to have him on the show.
Yeah, I'm starting to learn that myself. So I feel for you because I haven't had big name guests like that. Like I've a buddy of mine does an internet radio show that's very big on the weekends. And so I've interviewed like famous musicians, but it's always just like a sidekick. And now that I have like a couple shows of my own, I have to do like the solo thing. And as the guests ramp up, I'm with you. I get nervous. I'm like, oh boy, what if I sound like a total moron? Like, you know.
Well, if you do the show live, see, the funny thing is when I do Mocktails live, I get, and especially playing music, you can relate to this.
Yep.
As a musician, before you take the stage, you don't want to confuse your nerves that you have. You don't want to confuse them with excitement and scared shitless. Because there's a fine line. But every time I do the live show, I could probably do the 50th live show, and I feel like I'm going to go on stage. And the funny thing is, you're doing this show live tonight. I have no nerves. But when I do my monologue to open the show, I am a nervous wreck.
Yeah, it's because you want to make sure you don't flub things. I'm one of those people that I listen to like the intros and outros of my shows so that I can be like, okay, what did I screw up? What did I screw up?
Yeah.
I mean, and the reason I bring this up is because I wanted to, and again, I listened to a bunch of your stuff and everything, obviously, your episode with Sean and your friends especially. And what really stood out to me about the show, which I think people are really going to love, you do have some very, very big name guests. Okay. Like you said, Dan Madsen, you're going to have Steve Sansweet and stuff like that. But what really struck me was how personal the show feels, because it was, your episodes with, producers and filmmakers and stuff, they were just as kind of like, it sounds like a cheesy word, but intimate as the ones that you did with your friends. Like, you just have this natural way of conversing with people. Like, there's no pretentiousness there. There's, you really kind of just get into a groove and a conversation and you just kind of roll, and it's really cool. So I really personally enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm not even just saying that because you're on the show. Like, I mean, I really am not, I swear. But I mean, I really enjoyed the format. It was very casual and it looks great and it sounds, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think people should really definitely check it out.
I take that as the highest compliment. And, I feel like the passion that I have that's based around Star Wars has been the thing that the real fans, which you guys are, the Star Wars fans are the real fans. And a lot of people that watch my productions are like, man, the passion that I see on the screen. And I'm not, you can't fabricate passion. You can't create passion. And I would not, like I said, I would not be doing this if I wasn't passionate about it. But I think that is what, like you said, that's what you loved about it. A lot of people love the passion. And I watched this documentary on it's the Patreon for prostitutes. It's it was big last year. I want to say real fans, true fans.
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. So I'm watching OnlyFans documentary.
No one wanted to own knowing that.
Oh, dude, Twitter is my news source. I see 45,000 OnlyFans accounts every day on that.
Yes, OnlyFans. So
everyone was looking over here like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I feel like I got to take my clothes off to make a buck, but I haven't gone that far yet. But the thing is that I think that when you sign up for the Patreon of Mocktails, you are going to get even more intimate without taking my pants off.
Wearing your sleeping pants.
Because
taking your sleeping pants off.
I will be in my sleepy pants when I'm in here showing off my collection. But when you sign up for Patreon, and I'm down here in the Wampa Cave, I've had a lot of people tell me that they feel like the Patreon campaign that I've been running feels like family. So it's been like, okay, I love the intimacy, I love the passion, but now when you're part of Patreon, you feel like it's beyond community. You feel like you're in my basement at that point. So I think that's another plus, and I feel like when I was watching this documentary about OnlyFans, people are like, oh, I feel like I'm in the room while they're taking their clothes off. You know what? You're going to feel like you're in my room, but I'll be showing you my Star Wars collection instead of taking my clothes off.
Right.
I think I got an idea for you, Chris. I think we should get a group together, come over to the Wampa Cave and have a mocktail, sleepy pants, slumber party.
There you go.
There we go.
Your Patreon only.
Patreon only, yes.
The only problem with this is if you're near Joliet or in Joliet, I'm going to disappear for a few hours because if it's still there, the first time I was in Chicago was in 2002. There was some massive record store. A buddy of mine in Cleveland used to live in Joliet for a few years, and he took us to this record store there. And I could have spent hundreds of dollars at this place. So if I don't remember what it's called. I just remember, and again, this is 19 years ago, but it was there, and I'm sure it's not anymore. But let's hope not, because
I feel like that could be.
I feel like the sad reality of the record store industry, especially in Chicago, because Chicago's a huge city. We had Tower Records for the longest time. We had all these mom and pop record stores for the longest time. And my side gig that I got laid off from when the pandemic started was I go to all these mom and pop stores and I put up posters for whatever concerts in town.
Is that Rolling Stone record store still open?
Rolling Stone is still open. That is in Irving Park.
Okay. If you ever come back, John, if you can't find Joliet, you got to go check this place out.
Yes,
well, there we go. Live mocktails and the record store haunt. There we go.
Yeah.
Watch me just blow money on vinyl that only goes up on my wall.
That sounds like a good trip, actually.
Hey, you guys tell me where the good pizza place is. I'll bring some Cleveland beer. Swank was drinking the Cleveland bourbon. I could bring that. I got, what the hell? All right, so
I love it.
Good time.
Yeah. So here, okay. Before we go, because we've talked a lot about celebration, we're going to go around in a circle. Now, Steve has not been to a celebration.
No,
so Steve loves Star Wars, but he's a huge Disney guy, so he makes a yearly pilgrimage to Disney. But he's not been to celebration as such. So
I know enough about celebration from John and AJ. It's you make friends and you do stupid shit while you're drunk.
You get Ray Park drunk. You get Ray Park drunk at the bar in Anaheim to the point where he references his hangover during his panel the next day. I was very proud of that sitting in the crowd.
And sometimes you find a bag of open lunch meat in the elevator.
See, that's exactly where I'm going. I'm starting with Steve because he has not been, but he's heard all of our stories. So I want to go around. Steve, what is your favorite celebration story? It doesn't have to be about AJ and I, but
Oh God.
Favorite or funniest?
I don't know. Either going on the internet on your behalf and claiming that that your selfie with John Boyega was him claiming to be a fan of our podcast, or the drunken Ray Park stuff. One of the two.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people believe the Boyega thing. I got a random selfie with John Boyega walking around Chicago last year, and Steve posted and said, this guy said he knows our show. He's a big fan. And we got blown up for that. People, oh my God, John Boyega knows your show. Like they actually bought it. So
wait, John, you met Boyega randomly, and you also got drunk with Ray Park at the bar, and he referenced it at his panel in Anaheim?
Yes. So
how can you top those two experiences?
Well, I'm trying to think because AJ and I have done a lot of really stupid things.
We've yet to broadcast from the bathroom. We did say we were going to do that.
We have a bumper.
We can't get on the podcast stage, so let's broadcast from the bathroom instead.
We did a bumper from the bathroom and then decided that maybe there might be legal ramifications. So we decided against that. But yeah, I mean,
this is only because you were in the women's room.
No, shut up, Steve. That's not even true. Don't take it to a gross place. What is wrong with you? So no, like the Ray Park thing. So AJ, we were staying at the Marriott. Right next to the convention center, and we were down there drinking. I see Ray Park, and I walk up to him, and he's drinking, and he was tying one on a little bit, and I said, "Hey man, can I buy you a shot?" He turns and he goes, "F you, I'm gonna buy you a shot," and I went, "Okay." So next thing I know, we're just pounding shots, and I mean we were going. And the next day I went to see his panel and he's doing all these, all of his moves and stuff. And he literally says, boy, these moves are a lot easier when you're not really hungover from the night before. And I was like, that's me. I did that to him. That's my fault.
Wow. Yeah, I can't top that story.
So, all right. So we can do best or funniest. I'll go next because I'm sure you guys, I want to get your guys' opinions, but I think, and this may not be funniest, but this was literally within the first couple hours of our first celebration. It was in Orlando in 2010, and we were in that big commissary, and it was just absolutely packed, like assholes to elbows. And I got up to throw out my lunch, like the remainders of my lunch, and I bumped into somebody, and I looked up, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, Ben Burt." I'm like, he says, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "Not too bad." He's like, "Do you guys have a seat at your table? I cannot find a seat." And I went, Yeah, we have a seat at the table. So literally, we got into celebration about 10:30 in the morning. This is at about 12:45. We're eating lunch, and we're sitting there with Ben Burt. Like, we're having lunch with Ben Burt. And I'm just leaning back going, is this really happening? Like, and my buddy, he worked in the music industry and he had a recording studio. So they're talking about like sounds and all the plugins and all the stuff, Chris, you would probably understand, from production standpoint. And I'm just going, holy crap. I'm eating lunch with Ben Burt. Oh my God. So that one for me was like, and because it was my first big memory. So,
those are some good, you just rattled off 3 good moments there. Hard to beat.
That one was hilarious because I remember that was like a 3-way conversation. We had our recording buddy, we had obviously JT and myself. So like you've got one guy talking shop with like the tools and technology around the making of the sounds. I'm nerding out over like, so you really like whacked a big cable to make a Stormtrooper blaster sound. That's super interesting, man. Like what creatively like led you to that decision, like going all artsy fartsy with it? And then there's, JT right there going like, he makes the lightsaber sounds.
That was totally it.
Like, totally starstruck. Yeah.
All right, so I want to save like Chris and Sean for last because dude, you guys have some. You have to have had some stuff. I mean, you guys have been to every celebration. But if you've been to every celebration, there's got to be something amazing. I mean,
there's so many. I'm like digging deep, man.
See, first of all, being at Celebration 1 in and of itself is like the cool story. I mean, so
that was the Woodstock of Celebration. I mean, it just flat out. It rained all weekend, and so but it didn't stop us. And it actually made us more like the community just came together even that much more because we were all in the mess together. Didn't matter if you were the celebrity that was there or the vendors in the tent or whatever, or the attendee. We were all in the same rainy boat, and we were just going to have a good time no matter what happened.
I can only imagine, like our buddy Thrasher has talked about it, and he said the exact same thing, that it was almost like you're super excited because you're there as a group of fans, but then the fact that the weather was absolute garbage, it was a monsoon and a mud pit, like it brought you together even more. Because it was, well, not only are we all loving the same thing, but this is also a shithole.
I think the biggest disappointment of Celebration 1 for me was they had the opening ceremonies. And I'm like, I want to be at the opening ceremonies, but it was in a tent, and the tent was already full because the tent only held like 400 people, and there was 2,000 of us there. So right from the get-go, I was disappointed in that moment. Because me and Sean have been to every celebration, I cannot give you my favorite celebration moment because I feel like I have a favorite moment from each one.
Well, let's give you some more time to think about it while we go around table here.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that he says that because that's exactly my problem. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to answer with, and I'm like, I can give you one per show, but I can't say like one stands out over another because we get these timelines, these like snapshots through our relationships and our history, right? Like we talk about the Thrasher family and how we met at one show, and then at the next one, we saw someone, we saw Chris propose to his girlfriend, and then we saw them miss a celebration because their daughter was born. Those little snapshots along the way. I personally, my brother and I, we connected. I was living out of town at the time in Florida for the first celebration we went to. So he came down, and that was a chance for us to see each other, which didn't happen that often. And then he instigated my costuming by buying me a helmet after he saw me geek out in the 501st room. So, 2012 was the year I said, I'm going to have a costume for the next celebration. Then advanced to the next celebration, and I'm in costume with the thing that he instigated by buying me the helmet to kick my ass into gear. And then 17, we get Steph, his wife, coming with us. And then 19, we got to go back again to Chicago, which was cool because that was a new location for us. And we got to meet a whole bunch of new people. So, yeah, how do you pick a favorite?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I will say that. Okay, one, it was rare to be at Celebration 1. And my rarest moment looking back on everything was Ahmed Best, this stuff is hard to find on YouTube, you know. Ahmed Best played with a band, and as a music fan, I know, John, you can relate to this.
Yep.
The fact that Ahmed Best was singing with a rock band was like, oh my God, Star Wars and music combined in one. This is amazing, right. You know? Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I never hated Jar Jar, because I knew Ahmed Best and his talents before I saw Jar Jar on screen, just from going to Celebration 1. But they had this event called the Jar Jar Jam. And me and my cousin are out in the parking lot. It was at this venue. It was kind of like a temple. And me and my cousin are in the parking lot drinking Jack Daniels out of a bottle. No, it wasn't Jack Daniels. It was Captain Morgan washing it down with Coke. We go inside, and as soon as we go inside, there's two Asian dudes sitting down with Rick McCallum on a couch with like a candle on the table, and they were trying to sell their film to Rick, and Rick's swapping information with them. So right then and there, it was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm at an intimate party.
Yeah.
And then Ahmed Best is on stage. Ray Park comes out on stage and raps with the band. And then I got a photo with Pernilla August, you know, Shmi Skywalker.
Yep.
That was the only convention that she attended. I just feel like that moment right there, you know, you can't recreate that. And I don't think that necessarily was something that they thought was going to steal Celebration, because that was an additional ticket cost. Mm-hmm. And as a music fan, I had to go. And it was 21 years ago. Vividly remember that. And you can't find much on Google about that. So the fact that I was there, positive experience, great experience, that's got to be one of the top 5 moments of all the celebrations.
I've got some of the only footage from that.
Yes, yes.
Before I was told to turn my camera off, I got the opening intro where he came on stage and started beatboxing the Star Wars theme song for a few minutes, and then I had security came in. Hey, you got to turn that off. But I haven't seen any other footage about that since that.
Hey, Mark Thrash. Okay, yes, Mark Thrash. You guys have talked about Mark. I got to tell you, yes, not only the bomb threat in the street, but me and Mark were at the bar with my sister in Los Angeles, and at 11:38, hey, cheers to Mark Thrasher. 11:38 will always be a time to toast. And I can never not think about Mark because of that moment, you know? That's on the top 10 moments. That was actually on my birthday. My birthday is May 25th. They were doing this big Star Wars celebration inside the convention center. Boba Fett is flying for the first time on stage. Steven Sansweet's on stage. And you see everybody on the radios, right? And my sister can't get inside the convention center because some bozo left a box in the middle of the street that the LAPD thought was a bomb. Yeah, another story you can't make up, you know.
It's funny you mentioned drinking Jack out of a bottle and washing it down with Coke, because we were talking about the Thrashers. Like AJ, he had come in from Tampa. It's like about a 2-hour drive, and he had brought a handle of Bacardi. And I told the story earlier about how we met Thrasher over football. Well, then we literally, it was like, people would go out to the car to like smoke weed or something. We don't smoke. Well, we end up talking to Thrasher, and he's like, oh, my brother and my sister are here. So we get all 5 of us are talking, and, you have to buy a drink ticket, which is like $10 a ticket, celebration prices. And we were like, we got some booze in the car if you want. And they were like, yeah. So we marched outside into the parking lot because we had stayed off site. The only one we stayed off site because we learned that's a big no. And we got in the car, and it was like passing around a joint. We were passing around a handle of Bacardi, and we seriously, between the 5 of us, in about 2.5 hours, did it so many times. Like we would go back in, back out, back in, back out. But like in about 2.5 hours, we had all killed a handle of Bacardi. So we were all pretty wrecked. And I remember going to AJ like, man, those guys are really cool. I mean, it sucks they're from Baltimore, but when we exchanged numbers, not expecting to like keep in touch, like you, Chris, I'm very outgoing. I'm like, take my number. Oh man, I love you. We're friends. Whatever. And I don't really expect much of it because I'm like, oh, it's just me being drunk again. Well, Mark hits us up the next day. He's like, hey, what's going on? Let's hang out. Let's meet up at the convention. And so we hung out the next couple days, and then we've kept in touch ever since. And like AJ said, like he didn't tell the cool part about the story of Chris, Mark's brother Chris is actually in here. Chris Filla. He did get engaged at Celebration, but it was in the VIP section in front of Daniel Lloyd, Jake Lloyd and Daniel Logan. They were in there, and they got engaged right in front of them. As AJ and I were watching, and 5 minutes before, we were watching Kenny Baker absolutely ass-face wasted on wine in his wheelchair in the bar. Like, to the point where, like, we looked over and we're like, holy crap, that's Kenny Baker. He's with a bunch of people, but he was, like, passed out in his chair, and he had this, like, TV tray. And he had a wine goblet, dude. Like, he's obviously a short person. But, I mean, this wine goblet had to have had, like, maybe three-quarters of a bottle of wine in it. I was like, what the hell is he doing? So he's out for a good 20 minutes. And we're watching. All of a sudden, as we look over, we see him wake up, and he's, like, looking around. People are talking, and he's just, what's going on? And he looks at the goblet, and he chugs the thing. We were like, oh, my God, Kenny Baker just went even more legend.
Yep.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stories about how hard that Kenny Baker has partied. He would have been a great guest on Mocktails from the Cantina.
Yes. He
would have been a perfect guest, for sure.
Drinking game on Mocktails. Just have Kenny on.
Yeah.
And then go.
Amen to that, man.
Yeah. Well, I would like to do one final cheers to all four of you guys with my Phantom Menace IPA. Chris and Sean, thank you guys so much for making the time. This is officially our longest Nerf Herder Council ever in the history of the show.
It's been so much fun, man. Cheers to you guys.
Cheers to all you.
Cheers to you.
So one last time, everybody. Real fans of the Saga, go check that out on Amazon Prime. You can look up actually, you got to tell us where we can find this. Mocktails from the Cantina. Where can they find the show, Chris?
Mocktails from the Cantina is on YouTube. That's free. You don't have to pay a dime for that. If you want to get a little bit more deep cut, go to Mocktails from the Cantina Patreon. $25 gets you an IMDb producer credit. And, you get so much more for that. $2 gets you the podcast episode. Hey, there you go. Cheers, Mark Thrasher, 11:30. And this show is so long, I feel like 11:38 is coming up, and it's time for me to get in my sleepy pants.
Nice.
You guys can find all the stuff online. Just Google The Force Among Us, The Force Within Us. And if you really want to go direct, find me on Facebook, Chris Macht. I will sell you guys. Now I sound like a salesman. I have the downloads and the DVDs available for you guys instead of getting hosed by the coins that Amazon pays in the royalties. So there's a lot of different options to get it. But all I got to say is support the arts, go online, find a way to get it, and we will see you guys. We will see you guys eventually down the road.
I'm gonna sell it for you. Because I know exactly why you didn't say it this way. Guys, go to Chris's Facebook page and buy the DVDs from him because he makes the money instead of Amazon. So support him by giving him the money and not Amazon. Love Amazon, but support Chris. All the money goes to him, so buy it there. That's how you do it.
There you go.
So Before I get to my outro, I have one final question for Sean. Actually, it's a two-part question. Where the hell did you get a tractor trailer? And how full is it now, considering the footage we see is from 2015 and that thing was jam-packed? That is the Sanford and Son of tractor trailers, my friend.
It is literally the back ass of a semi-trailer. It's about 53 feet long, stock full of stuff that I have collected, hoarded, depending on who you talk to. that is dying to break free and get put on display once I get a house and build my eventual man cave. That's that I've been talking about forever. I've been pushing towards it. I feel it's within reach within the next couple of years. So the story behind how I got it is I got to thank my grandfather for it. This guy had connections all over the world and then some. And he knew a place that sold trailers like that, just sold them for the sake of selling them. He got his hands on one for me. He happened to own a warehouse in a town near that I grew up in. Let me park it there and, free of rent or what have you. And that's where it's been keeping my collection safe all these years, except after he passed, I had to relocate the trailer to an actual storage unit facility, which is where it sits now, which is why it was shown on the show. But that's how I got that trailer. And yes, it is not much room left.
So, guys, if that's not the ultimate plug for the real fans of the Saga, you have to see Sean's trailer. It's actually like a semi truck trailer. So go check that out. So
you would see backed up in the Toys R Us when they were open, unloading stuff. Yeah, they unloaded. I filled mine right up.
It would even be better if you would have bought one of those old Toys R Us trailers.
I would have. Oh yeah, that's next level collecting right there.
Right? Oh my God! Well, guys, thank you.
Quick,
yeah.
For the next, one of the things I'm all proud of course, is the Mandalorian mashups. If anybody out there has an idea for a Mandalorian mashups, feel free to share it with me at our Facebook page, Mandalorian Mashups at Facebook. Also, Celebration 2022, we are going to have a Mashup Mania meetup and photo op like we've done for the past 3 celebrations. And we're hoping to make it the biggest one yet. Chicago was so far the biggest one we've had so far. But I want to go even bigger. And it doesn't have to be Mandalorian. It could just be a mashup of anything. But that's what we're... So keep an eye out for that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Cris and Sean, we cannot thank you guys enough for coming on. I was so looking forward to this, and it was even better than I hoped it would be. You guys are awesome. So to everybody watching and listening out there, please go check out everything that Cris and Sean are doing. It is all super, super entertaining. There is the beautiful Eddie Van Halen Boba Fett helmet. Oh, God, that's so great. So, again, guys, thanks for checking out another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. You can find us at nerfherdercouncil.com. Hit us up on Twitter at NHC Podcast. You can find the audio version of the show pretty much anywhere where podcasts are found. So just Google the Nerf Herder Council and you'll find us. We are doing this live on our Facebook and YouTube pages every other Thursday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah. Wednesday. Thank you. See, I was all ready to talk about just in case the internet works, and I messed up the date. So every other Wednesday. Thank you.
You're thinking too much about your sleepy pants.
Yeah, I am. So every other Wednesday, right here on our YouTube and our Facebook. So come hang out with us live, be a part of the conversation. And again, you can find us, Audible, go to audibletrial.com. If you want to get a free audiobook, just go there, audibletrial.com/NHC. And if you would like to get some awesome Nerf Herder Council swag that you can customize any way you want, we've got 4 different logos on any kind of different clothing, coffee mugs, anything, you name it. Go and jump on shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. So until next time, I am your host, JT, at Dog Pound Jedi. He is AJ.
At Drake Adams, 579.
He is Steve.
At Nerf Herder Steve.
And he is Chris Macht. Where you... Pick yourself one more time.
We will see you guys next time on Mocktails from the Cantina.
Love it. Catch you later, guys. May the Force be with you.
Bucket of bolts is never gonna get us past that blockade.
This bucket's got a few surprises left in her. Plus me and Chewie are on it. Ain't that right, Chewie?
Hell yeah, you my Nerf herder.
You my Nerf herder.